This is the Yanks Go Yard podcast with Adam Weinrib and Thomas Carannante.
What's up? What's going on? It's the Yanks Go Yard podcast live on a Thursday afternoon, 2 o'clock Eastern. Thanks for joining us here on YouTube. The Yankees' second half of the season begins tomorrow. Second half, even though they've already played 98 games? Yeah, I guess. It's the second half, which is 64 games long. Sure. Either way, the Yanks have a lot to get in line ahead of a postseason chase. Would have said a postseason berth about a month ago. Now I can't say that. They're like 5 games up on that. They got some work to do to close the door and expand the gap. What do we need to see from them when play resumes? What players do we want to see emphasized? And it'll all change at the trade deadline anyway, hopefully. So what do we need to see and what can we round up in the rumor department there to break it all down? Joining me as always is Thomas Carannante. He's got a word from a sponsor first, and then we'll get right into it.
I also got something in my mouth.
Wow. Oh, that's breaking.
I don't know what happened. Ugh.
No, first half in your mouth. Tastes like first half.
Yeah, tastes like, I don't know. Second half, here we go. Yankees fans, DraftKings, you know the drill. They're here with a special sign-up offer for new users in a few lucky states. Get up to $300 in bonus bets if you live in Iowa, Illinois, Louisiana, Michigan, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Vermont, or Wyoming when you sign up with the code Yanks Go Yard. New users in these select states can make a first bet of $5 and get $150 in bonus bets, a $10 first bet to get $200 in bonus bets, or a $50 bet to get $300 in bonus bets. I would advise 50 because why the hell not? Double your earnings there. If you don't live in one of these states, no worries, because we are fully national. We still got you covered with $150 in bonus bets with our code Yanks Go Yard. The best part is that you will receive these rewards instantly after placing your first bet, and it doesn't matter if the bet wins or loses. Using our code Yanks Go Yard not only grants you these bonuses, but it helps directly support the podcast. Your two good friends, Adam and Thomas, yanksgoyard.com. The content machine, that is us. So if you've been considering signing up for DraftKings, make sure to use that code Yanks Go Yard. Tell your friends, tell your family members, maximize those first bets. This offer is only available to new customers who are 21 and older and physically present in legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Check the episode description for full terms of the offer to see which one you qualify for, because there's a bunch of them. Quick hits here. The fact that they are even calling anything first half records at this point after they played 97 games. Why? Very cool. Aaron Judge hit 34 homers before the break. That's not a record. He played in 10 extra games, 15 extra games.
But if he'd had an April that wasn't abominable, he'd probably be at like 40 now, which is pretty cool. But
I guess, yeah. We could do that. That's always fun to.
We could do that.
Yeah.
If stuff that didn't happen happened, then we'd be in great shape.
That would be sick.
Yeah.
But yeah, whatever. Sure. And you know what the shorter second half means is that there's less room for error. So it doesn't really make me happy. If it was a clean 81 split, or somewhere closer to like 85-ish, I'd probably feel a little bit more optimistic. But now that you have, 65 games?
58 and 40 on the year right now, so 64 more games.
64 more games, yeah. I mean, you really can't fuck up in 64 games, and they've been fucking up a lot. So figure it out, guys.
We saw most of their lead evaporate. I don't think their lead, it's always fun when you have to go through the technicalities of a collapse. How big a lead did they blow? Exactly. Well, it wasn't as bad as it could have been. Cool. They've obviously blown a giant chunk of lead over the Boston Red Sox. They once led them by 13. I think it maybe peaked at 14. Now it's 2 in the loss column, 3.5 in real life because of the discrepancy in games played. I don't think they ever actually had a lead on a playoff spot larger than like 9 or 10 games, but now it's 5, 6. So work to be done there. That has been frittered away, but hasn't disappeared. Always be closing. You got to close, and the Yankees don't even maybe have a closer in their bullpen right now. So start there. But we wanted to talk about things that we need to see from this team when the second half begins, as well as latest updates on trade deadline targets. When we were on the show on Monday, we were definitely hoping for, okay, we get here on Thursday. We have a lot of names meaningfully connected to the Yankees. Only real one package, and we've got something to talk about. We'll talk about it later. But things that we need to see from this team when the second half begins. And Thomas, we disagree on this point slightly. And it's sort of a chicken or the egg. And I think a lot of the disagreement here comes from diagnostics too, because we're all just desperate to figure out. It's like when we're watching the Yankees sink and collapse, and we're like, there's just something wrong in the clubhouse. What is it? I don't know. I'm not in there, but there has to be something wrong, because this team is too talented to be as dreadful as it's been, to have the slides that it's had in 21, 22, 23, and now this year. Imperfect, sure, but less talented teams play with more consistency. So when you're trying to diagnose what's going wrong in the locker room, could just be Aaron Boone, could be a culture of players, could be a culture of complacency, could just be the wrong ingredients over and over again, where there's a lot of talent, but they don't play off each other well, and there'd be better fits if they were to just blow it up and remove 6 pieces, etc. We don't know, but I do know that Alex Verdugo is one of the current worst regulars on this team. But when he was placed in the cleanup spot, and he was placed in the cleanup spot every day, and this team was functioning at its highest point, they were playing a consistent lineup day in and day out, which they never did last year, never did previous years, and have gotten away from as their season has fallen apart. There haven't even been that many injury necessities for switching the lineup up. Giancarlo Stanton is gone now, of course. And when a lefty's in, Jahmai Jones gets his start, and everybody laughs at it, but somehow the Yankees also play a little better than they do when he's not playing. Consistency is what I ask for. And I'm not sure if we'll learn a lot from the first lineup out of the break, because maybe it's Judge and Soto in 1-2. I doubt it. I don't think they'll go that far. Yeah. Ben Rice needs ABs. Judge and Soto, the more ABs you get them, the better. Anthony Volpe can't lead off for the rest of the year, as far as I'm concerned. Austin Wells needs to be moved up in the order and will be playing a lot more, getting the bulk of the starts. Everybody was upset, at Jose Trevino for stealing Wells reps. Yeah, Jose Trevino has a grade 2 quad strain. He's not going to play for quite a while. Everybody was upset at Anthony Rizzo blocking Ben Rice. Anthony Rizzo gets hurt. There goes Ben Rice. Now we have a Rizzo quandary when he does resume activities, but that'll be a while from now, unfortunately, for Anthony Rizzo. So things work themselves out. Trevino getting injured is bad. You don't want to see that befall anyone, especially not somebody who cares about the Yankees as much as he does. But it does open up reps for someone who right now deserves more of them than he does. I think it might take you a couple games. You're home against Tampa, a team that you are better than. Does that matter? Hasn't mattered in a while. And you're usually better than Tampa. Doesn't, again, that's not saying you should beat them. You got to win that series. But the Yankees have more talent than the Tampa Bay Rays right now. So you're not starting off with an absolute fire breather in the second half. You can experiment a little bit, but find a lineup that works as quickly as you can. Maybe by the time the Mets come to town, maybe by the time you go to Fenway, which is next weekend. Great. That never ends. I would like to see them find more consistency.
Yeah, and you are right. It is the chicken or the egg, because I think that the consistency, the unfounded consistency, I should say, with how Aaron Boone makes these lineups has been the problem. Being wed to Anthony Volpe in the leadoff spot, not punishing guys when they're playing poorly, not moving them up when they're playing better. The only 2 static spots in this lineup should be Judge and Soto, and I fully agree it should not be the 1-2. We've heard some chatter about that in terms of Talking Yanks asked Boone about it. You see fans all the time on social media wondering if that's eventually going to be the case. It shouldn't be the case. They should have another competent hitter that gets on base in front of them, and they should at least have another competent hitter behind them who can drive them in. The problem with it is explain this to me, because I didn't actually pay close enough attention to it until I had more time to just zoom out and not be constantly frustrated about this team and not pick them apart constantly. But, just looking at stats, looking at payroll stuff, having a good old time. How do you have this many regulars with this bad of on-base percentages? Austin Wells, I know he's had limited playing time. 309 OBP, not good. Anthony Rizzo, before he went down, 289 OBP. That's fucking awful. Gleyber Torres played in every game this season with the exception of he's played 93 of 97 games. 307 OBP. Anthony Volpe, 300 OBP. Oswaldo Cabrera, 288. Alex Verdugo, 292. Giancarlo Stanton before he got hurt, 302. That's bad for a player like Giancarlo Stanton. Jose Trevino, 303. I guess that's fine for what he brings to the table, but he's batting at the bottom of the order anyway, so I'm more so trying to figure out who can do it in the cleanup or the leadoff spot. DJ LeMahieu, 284. Trent Grisham has been improving, and I would actually give this OBP 301 a grade A because it's over 100 points than his batting average. And even Ben Rice in this limited action, 315 OBP, fine. He's been bringing the power, so I can overlook that a little bit. I don't understand how a team that has just predicated its philosophy on walks is not walking at all, except Judge and Soto, 433 for Judge, 426 for Soto. So that, number one, is probably the biggest issue. Number two, however, is that this lineup has largely remained static outside of the Verdugo and the Volpe movements, but the Verdugo and the Volpe movements happened after it became untenable. We need Aaron Boone to act with more haste, but a good kind of haste. You have a bad 10 games in a row. Goodbye to your spot for now. Nobody on this team besides Aaron Judge, besides Juan Soto, and besides Giancarlo Stanton, with his career behind him to this date and how he's performed this year, deserve any sort of consistency, everyday reps, every role. Every other player is either unproven or has regressed beyond belief or has struggled with injuries or doesn't have their head in the game. So there needs to be a shakeup in terms of with more regularity moving people around and figuring it out. Like at this point, hot take, maybe a little bit crazy, I would experiment batting Austin Wells first.
I would think about it.
I would ponder it. He's been on fire. He's been hitting the ball well. He's been seeing the ball well. That's an instance where you're going to ride the hot hand. Is Austin Wells a leadoff hitter? No, he's not. Can he be a leadoff hitter for 2 weeks while you're trying to figure some shit out and get out of a slump? Absolutely. How did Anthony Rizzo eventually move to the leadoff spot? Joe Madden decided to experiment with it because they needed a lefty closer to the top of the lineup, and they were prioritizing OBP. Back then, OBP machines. Same thing with Kyle Schwarber when the Phillies had been doing it. I think the Cubs did it towards the end of his tenure as well. Like, these are not static leadoff hitters. To be honest, the leadoff hitter in this day and age is kind of non-existent. DJ LeMahieu was the last in terms of the Yankees sphere. He was the last real leadoff hitter that we could have envisioned. Batting over 300, walking the ball, walking the ball.
Walking the ball.
Yes, he could walk the ball if he wanted to, but walking consistently, spreading the ball to all fields, putting the ball in play. Yankees don't have anybody like that right now. So at this point, they might have to look at shuffling somebody in the leadoff spot who's walking a decent amount or who's just simply hot. And then it comes down to figure out who is seeing the ball well and making good contact for the cleanup spot for now, because that spot can't be static, at least until Giancarlo Stanton comes back. Again, nobody has earned or deserved any sort of accolade on this team except for those three players offensively. So that's where I think we can get the consistency and the regularity with the frequent experimenting. To be honest, I think we might be a little bit too far past that point. Mm-hmm. I think they should have been doing this in the second week of June. But alas, I don't know what this team is going to look like out of the break. If more of the same shit continues, they have to figure it out by the middle of August.
Well, apologies to everybody again who a couple of weeks ago I was like, this, a team doesn't go from being 50-22 to just being the dregs of baseball overnight. That doesn't happen. They'll bounce back. You read through that list of OBPs, you read through those stats and the current roster, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe they are just an 8-18 team. Like, that sounds like a terrible group of guys that I really don't want to watch resume the Major League Baseball season. But
we came to that conclusion last year.
Yeah, resume it they will. I mean, they were like 11 games over last year, and I will give a team – I would say that last year was pretty clearly a bad team playing over their heads. I believed in this team. I'm not saying I was going to get ready to guarantee a World Series or whatnot, But at the place they were at with all the wins they banked in mid-June, I could just not accept the fact that they were going to be dreadful immediately for a long period of time. But then what happened to the Yankees happens to the Yankees, right? The pitchers went from leading baseball in ERA to putting up 7-8 ERAs in a 1-month span. If that's going to happen, that completely unpredictable reversion to the mean, fine. Reversion to a form we've never seen before, complete disappearance, dissolution. Like if that's going to happen, then anything can happen. And so then I guess, yeah, they might be an 8-18 team until proven otherwise, which is why we need to attack the trade deadline with ferocity. Transformative trade deadline. In 2022, they did that. And it gets forgotten and lost in the shuffle because the moves they made were so shitty. So you know what? Don't make terrible moves again. But in order for this team to be a contender and to resemble a contender in a wide open American League, the way that they did, they were a flawed contender in April, May, and through the middle of June. Now they are in a stronger American League. They wouldn't even be mentioned. But because there are holes in the American League contention picture, they're right. They borderline have the best record in the American League after doing what they did in June and July. So they're right in it. Put them in a short series, get the version of the pitching that looks somewhat more like the balanced version rather than the version that posts 8 ERAs over 1-month span. Demote Carlos Veron doesn't get a playoff start. Sorry. You have potential to compete in a short series, as long as they have a transformative deadline. But this is a rare year where you can, if you patch 2 or 3 holes at the same time, they could be the talk of the town by August 8th. Like they could be the best team in the American League if they do it right. Unfortunately, it's a seller's market. It's a tough one. I don't want them to get Garrett Crochet, who's going to get shut down at some point in the second half, or at the very least, someone who has Luis Heel-like innings concerns. So overpaying for him. Confusing. John Heyman's been beating the drum a little bit, saying if Tarek Skubal is available, you have to give up Spencer Jones to get him. Yes. No kidding. No kidding. You do. I don't think that he is available, unfortunately. But a Jack Flaherty type to strengthen the rotation. I've been floating around mentally, just in my own head, like 2022, they traded from the rotation. They traded Jordan Montgomery, but then they never upgraded because they just traded for Frankie Montas, but didn't get a second starter. If you want to trade Nestor Cortez and get 2 starting pitchers, I would pursue that. Thinking about maybe a Nestor to the Cardinals trade for a utility bat for returning Tommy Edman. I don't know. I mean, they literally did Montgomery to the Cardinals for Bader, but then they just forgot to get Pablo Lopez. If you want to complete a gambit and get Nestor, transition him to a new home, but also and make his recent tweet during the All-Star game even funnier. But add 2 pitchers while getting rid of 1, adding a bat in the Nestor deal. It's interesting because Alex Rodriguez said at the All-Star game, the American League is wide open, which is a double-edged sword because it means it's winnable for the Baltimore Orioles, who have a better farm system than you and could easily trade for a Skubal or a Crochet. Wouldn't even hurt. It means it's also winnable for the Boston Red Sox, who are just a couple games behind you, playing with energy I haven't perceived from you in a month and a half since they took your lunch at Fenway Park and ran all over Jose Trevino. Second half schedule, lighter than the first half schedule. Lighter, again, what are halves? I don't know. But June schedule was crazy. July schedule was crazy. Like we said in a previous episode, expectations should have been raised for this Yankees team, but they weren't. And they played in June and July like they have in previous years, where their division rivals pose problems, strong teams pose problems. They just played them all in a row. They didn't get a breather series. Usually, if they were playing the same stretch in previous years, they would have gone just under 500 because they would have gotten a 3-game series with the White Sox in the middle, or a 3-game series with the, a team they own. I don't know. They would just pepper less challenging series in between Red Sox, Rays, Jays, Rays, Red Sox, Jays. But they didn't. So the Yankees just lost all those series because that's what they do when they're playing their worst. August and September, if you revitalize this team a little bit, Jays and Angels and Rangers at home, at White Sox, at Tigers, Guardians at home, Rockies at home, at Nationals, Cardinals at home. That's your August. Go to the Rangers, go to the Cubs, Royals at home, Red Sox for 4 at home, at Mariners, at A's, versus the O's versus the Pirates.
Mm.
It's not easy. None of it's easy. These are major league teams. Some of the lesser teams I'm mentioning are borderline playoff teams. A lot of teams are in the wild card race. The Cubs might look a lot better by then. The Royals are going to be battling it out with you for a wild card spot for the remainder of the year. I'm not saying easy, simple, chalk it up, 3 or 4, 2 or 3, 2 or 3, get it done. But you don't quite have that AL East behemoth stretch where it's just Red Sox, O's, Rays, O's, Sox over and over again. This stupid July month ends with at Phillies, by the way, for everybody who thought we were escaping the easy stretches. Like, oh, no, actually, you have to go to Fenway and then you have to go to Philadelphia. Enjoy. But if you can hang in it by then, transform yourselves at the trade deadline, and then attack August with a couple of your holes patched up, I think this is a playoff team and a World Series contender in air quotes right now, because you got to show me and you got to prove it. But it's possible. Yeah. It's plausible even that they could do it, even in a seller's market. But guess what? You're going to have to pay the price. So why not just pay it now?
Yeah. I don't even, this might sound crazy, but I don't think they need a starter. I think the starting rotation has been as good as most starting rotations are going to be. The only acquisition I would make on that front is just insurance, another sixth starter who can weather the storm if there's an injury, or be moved to the bullpen come postseason time to give multi-inning performances. I don't feel the need to go after Tarek Skubal unless you're fully blocking the Orioles from doing so. Then I would support that. This team needs hitters, and on that front, yes, they need an aggressive trade deadline. As you said, very insightful and good, by the way. Thank you for that breakdown. However, I think the more important thing is getting rid of dead weight. And I'm going to throw Alex Verdugo into this category. Why? Because he's been here for a couple months.
He should be there. Yeah.
He's not a cornerstone player by any means. He, in my opinion, is not an integral member of the clubhouse any longer, based on what we've seen over the last really 3 months. He was good in March, the end of March, beginning of April, and he's been bad since May.
He was good in March is tough stuff. That was one series. He was good, but
you're
good in March. Yeah, you were
nice.
good in the Astros series.
Trying to be a nice guy. Yeah. He's been one of the 7 worst qualified hitters since May 8th in terms of OPS. Defense has slipped with, the few gaffes that we've seen over the last month or so. One of Glaber, who's improved of late, so maybe he's trending upward. One of DJ or one of Verdugo, and I would even go as far to say Tommy Kahnle need to go. You might look at Glaber's numbers over the course of his career and say, hey, he's been good, but guess what? It's not working out. He's been regressing for so long at this point. He's played in 23 more games than Anthony Rizzo. He has the same amount of home runs. He only has 10 more runs scored. He only has 7 more RBIs, and he has nearly double the strikeouts. So it's just not working. Everybody who's saying that he has caught on or has figured it out, he's batting .231 with a .654 OPS, 84 OPS plus. It's just not good enough. DJ LeMahieu, I don't know how much longer this team is going to be able to exist with him getting regular playing time. I understand the defensive versatility at first and third is nice, but he is the most wasteful of spots in the lineup based on how he's performed. He'll sprinkle in a couple of 2-hit games here and there with a couple of singles, and it'll make you think that he's looking like he's coming back, and then it's 0 for 4, 0 for 4, rollover. It's not tenable. And even as a bench player, I don't know where you insert him. I don't know where you insert a guy batting 198 with a 43 OPS plus at any point. That's going to murder your offensive production. Anybody who's hoping he's getting back to 2019, 2020 LeMahieu levels, it's just not happening. He's been injured for 4 years straight. No. I love DJ LeMahieu. We thought we supported that extension. I'm not poo-pooing the extension. The extension needed to happen. You couldn't let him walk after those 2 seasons, and you owed him money after he outperformed that contract one of the best Yankees contracts in recent memory. But at this point, if you're serious about contending in 2024, he can't be here. And then finally, Verdugo, if you can free up $4 or $5 million in payroll and get another reliever out of that or something, like that's got to be the way you go. All three of these guys cannot be on this team. The only reason these other players are getting passes, Anthony Rizzo, no one's going to want him. And I think he's actually good for the clubhouse. So there's that. Yeah. Oswaldo Cabrera, much better defender and more versatile than probably anybody we have on the team. And he's a switch hitter. Trevino is the backup catcher. Trevino, Austin Wells, that's the catching duo. If you want to upgrade a catcher, sure. I don't know where you're doing that.
Martin Maldonado, obviously.
Yeah. Trent Grisham has been on fire for 30 games in terms of offensive production. I know he's had a couple of defensive miscues, but again, your fourth outfielder. This is not somebody who we need to be relying upon for 30 home runs and, pristine defense on a night in, night out. Yes, you want him in there, not bobbling the ball in center field and kicking it around, but I think that will not be a trend. And again, this is somebody who should not be playing often, who is merely additive, lefty power bat coming off the bench, elite defense, whether you think so or not, it's an asset. So to me, those 3, 4, and Tommy Kahnle, like anybody looking at the numbers, oh, he's got a 2.95 ERA. Yeah, that's great. He also has a 5.24 FIP, a 1.36 whip. He gives up 2 home runs per 9 innings, and he walks 4.4 batters per 9 innings. Not a high leverage reliever by any means. The man, again, Tommy Kahnle, great energy guy. Loved when we re-signed him. Thought it was going to work out. Another injury problem. Has not performed since 2017. It's just not it anymore. If you can offload him to another team willing to take on some salary, so be it. Figure out another way to revamp the bullpen and get better high leverage guys in there. But if you're telling me you're going to go into the postseason with your high leverage options as Clay Holmes, I like Clay Holmes. It's just he can't do it for 50% of the time. So it's a coin flip every time he goes out there now. Night and day between his first month and a half and what we've seen over the last month and a half. Tommy Kahnle, what's his name? Who's our high leverage lefty? Why am I blanking? We don't even have one. Oh, Luke Weaver. I'm sorry. Yeah. Luke Weaver, who's good, but has also been susceptible to giving up runs here and there, as we've seen. Caleb Ferguson, who's supposed to be not this bad, but
still here.
So like this bullpen needs a revamp. And yes, you can easily shuck one of these guys off the roster who aren't making money, but you need to maybe get some money off this payroll to create some breathing room elsewhere, because there's a lot of holes. And I said it earlier this week, the Yankees are once again taking this down to the buzzer. And I know that it's not entirely their fault. Teams will sell when teams decide to sell. But guess what? The Royals went out and got somebody they wanted. They got Hunter Harvey from the Nationals. How are the Royals skipping the line to get stuff that they need this early? Why aren't the Yankees doing that? Why are the Yankees going to go into the trade deadline days before it's complete and have 7 things they need to do? It's just not smart. So to me, you got to make the additions and the subtractions need to be meaningful. They really need to send a message. If you get rid of one of those 4 guys, in my opinion, you're sending a message to the rest of the team. You're bringing in new motivated players who haven't been struck by whatever has affected any of these players, and you're better off for it from a mental standpoint. It's not going to happen, but that's what I think needs to happen.
Yes, and I think the bullpen is especially glaring and a focus, but I think people forget what a truly great bullpen looks like. And I think people are like, yeah, Weaver, Holmes, Kahnle, for all of Holmes's faults, he's still an all-star closer. Like, that'll do it. I think you should take a look at the 2017 Yankees bullpen that they entered October with, which felt like overkill, but is actually just the right amount of good bullpen arms to have. Aroldis Chapman is your closer. Maybe one of the reasons that we don't believe that this was a fantastic bullpen, and I agree. I was sick of him at that point, sick of him now. But Aroldis Chapman at closer and Dellin Betances was struggling with workload at that point. So he wasn't quite Dellin Betances. He was entering the 2017 postseason at his weakest point. I remember going to one of those Astros games where they were up like 8-3 in the 9th or whatever, and he walked the bases loaded, and it was like, God damn it. But Chapman, Betances, Chad Green, David Robertson, Tommy Kahnle. That's a hell of a bullpen. Even the guys like Chase and Shreve had ERAs under 4 that year. Even Jonathan Holder, who you mentioned that name and you're like, man, that guy was a gas can.
Last guy in the bullpen, probably.
ERA under 4 and last guy in the bullpen. Like, that's how it works. So Caleb Ferguson, eminently DFAable and will be DFA'd at some point. Josh Mastoyevsky, 4 shutout innings in his major league career so far, but he will be demoted at some point. The Yankees have 2 obvious spots that they'll be upgrading. Tim Hill, I think they'd like to hold on to as long as they can.
Looks good.
Michael Tonkin, same deal. Jake Cousins, ever since Sunday, I've been racked with guilt, wondering what it would look like if Jake Cousins closed that game out instead of Clay Holmes. But think about that 2017 bullpen I just read off right now. Weaver, you trust him for the most part.
Yeah.
Clay Holmes, for the most part, you don't. Needed the All-Star break reset. Got it. Kahnle in a big situation, susceptible to the long ball.
Every time.
He's the 2nd or 3rd power-ranked arm in that bullpen right now, and he should be 6th.
Yes.
I would rather see Tonkin. I would rather see Cousins in a close game. Not even a slight on Tommy Kahnle, just showing that you can do better, and the Yankees previously have done better. This is not even close to the great bullpens of the 2017 to 19 Yankees. They had 7 options you'd feel relatively confident in coming in a game like this. Remember when Zach Britton joined that bullpen the next year? I mean, right now you're just not even in that ballpark. So the bullpen needs serious work. And it says a lot that Scott Efros is rehabbing. Who knows when he comes back? But what I do know is that he was activated and optioned to AAA right before the break. So he's ready, and he's not on the major league roster. So the Yankees don't believe in him over Mastoyevsky and Ferguson right now. So not the savior. Going to have to go ahead and grab 2 arms at the deadline at the very least. Should we pivot over to the latest in deadline news? Potentially news. I mean, buzz. I don't know if you even call it at this juncture. We're 2 weeks out, under 2 weeks out from the deadline. And we get on the Yankees for not jumping the line and beating the Royals to it. But Hunter Harvey moving, Luis Arraez moving in May. I mean, this is pretty much the only stuff that's happened so far. Nobody else is jumping in the line either. So, and every trade rumor I read, it involves Tommy Pham. So we're not exactly getting a lot of interesting and unique angles. People aren't theorizing as much as they should be. John Heyman, to his credit, on the live stream this week after the All-Star, did say that the Yankees might be looking to upgrade the closer role. Whether that's moving Holmes back to a setup man or acquiring somebody else's closer and making them a setup man, I don't know. Mentioned Estevez, mentioned Tanner Scott, who's going to be the most expensive relief commodity on the market. Either way, get creative. It's nice to hear that. It's nice to hear the Yankees aren't like, look, Holmes is their closer, and they'll see what they can do. So I would like to see them upgrade that spot, obviously. But this week, as the comments hinted, the trade deadline partnership that has been most heavily speculated about is the Yankees and Rays. Danny Martino wrote a piece on this that basically said Isaac Paredes is available. Zach Eflin will be available either mid-season at this deadline or after the season with 1 year left on his contract. Rays are shopping Ahmed Rosario, Brandon Lau. Interesting. Last time I had checked Brandon Lau, he was struggling. Now all of a sudden his OPS is over 800. He's got, I believe it's a 133 OPS plus. He's a 250 hitter with power, strikeout percentage in the mid-20s. Kind of feels like a Yankee, especially at Yankee Stadium, though the lineup isn't as unbalanced as it's been in the past. Either way, the Rays scouts, Garrett Clevenger, fire-breathing lefty in the bullpen, who, again, a couple years ago, this is what the Rays do best. A couple years ago, Garrett Clevenger was just a waiver wire guy floating from team to team. Now he's a 30-year-old who struck out 49 and 38 in the third innings, though his numbers this year are a little bit worse than they were last year when his ERA was all the way down at 3, albeit in a 12-inning sample. Hey, Yankees like the arm. We'll see. I don't know. That would not be my preferred target. But either way, the Rays scouts have been all over the Tampa Tarpons in recent weeks. Maybe they were just looking to catch a ball game in the Tampa metro area, or maybe they were looking at Yankees prospects for potential in-division trades. The Yankees have been trading with the Red Sox a lot more in recent years than I would have ever thought, but accepting the Verdugo deal and the Ottavino trade, I mean, both of those were kind of the other team trying to pawn off an issue on the opposing front office. The Red Sox wanted us to take Verdugo. We did. So far, wish we hadn't. Yankees obviously wanted to get out of the Ottavino contract and had seen what he had become and gave him to the Red Sox, and he helped end their 2021 season. With a bullpen implosion, both late against the Yankees in the regular season and then in the ALCS. So that worked out for the New York Yankees. Those trades were unexpected, but ultimately you can see why they were made. The Rays are the team in the AL East I would say is annually most likely to match up with the Yankees because the Rays are confident they can win any trade they make. So why wouldn't they want to trade with a division rival? Like if they feel confident they're going to be able to target names in the farm system that the Yankees aren't appreciating, then why wouldn't they want to do that? Because then they would be able to pawn off players they don't see as long-term fits on an organization in their division who they know they'll eventually taunt by turning the pieces and prospects they surrender in exchange into something that haunts them down the line. So, the Jays don't want to trade Kikuchi in the division because then he'll manhandle them for the rest of the year. The Orioles and Yankees are not going to make a trade this year. Spoiler alert. Neither are the Red Sox and Yankees for the rest of the year. But annually, the Rays feel like a team that, if they're confident and they believe that they're going to get the best of you, wouldn't they rather trade with a division rival than another team? So I would suspect that any given year, if you ask me what division rival the Yankees are most likely to trade with, it's the Rays. And this year, it feels increasingly likely. It's just sort of a matter of which Ray the Yankees are most likely to end up with. I'd rather have Brandon Lau. I like Ahmed Rosario for the bench a lot as well because they need lefty killers. They weirdly need righties who can tackle lefties. They got lefty power in the lineup. You could use somebody from the other side of the plate.
Yeah, I'm not afraid to trade with the Rays with the return thing because it's like whatever, man. The Yankees are smart enough to not give up something that will fully haunt them, and we know Brian Cashman operates with the utmost of caution at every single deadline in the offseason, whenever these talks come up. So that doesn't concern me. The thing that concerns me is everybody who performs on the Rays is not really a performer elsewhere. And that might be a blanket statement because I don't have research in front of me, but you kind of know how the vibe is with the Rays. Like they awaken guys who were bad or irrelevant, and then they become Tampa Bay legends because I don't know, nobody's at the games. The Rays have their own system in place where they can maximize middling talent. And then you acquire one of them and it's, it's little fish in a big pond. And I don't know if it would work out. Like Brandon Lau, I like his profile. He's had like inexplicable struggles as a Ray. Like what's going to happen when the pressure is on in New York? I don't know. It's just worth thinking about. Like my issue is not, oh man, we gave up a high A prospect and oh God, this guy's going to screw us in 3 years with the Rays. I don't give a shit about that. Like, yeah, if we're giving Spencer Jones to the Rays or, another high-end prospect that we're talking about every day, that's a different story. So trade biting me in the ass 3 years down the line because we were trying to save our World Series hopes in 2024. That doesn't matter. It's can these guys perform on a bigger stage, not under whatever spell the Rays have them under. That's my issue. I would take any of these guys because they're probably better than the roster fodder that we have at the moment. I'm confident we can have them outperform DJ LeMahieu at the very least at this point. But are we looking for that? Or are we looking for someone who's going to absolutely be, a number 6 hitter in this lineup that's consistent and is driving in runs and is putting the ball in play and is showing off some power. So I don't know. The whole trade deadline situation is fucked to me. Ever since they expanded this playoff pool, all these other teams think that they have a chance when they actually don't, and it's given sellers an advantage because any team who's already a seller at this point, like who? You have the Marlins, you have the Nationals. I guess you have the Rockies, even though they're kind of not selling assets. You have the White Sox. If there's that few of sellers, the ball's in their court. Wait as long as they want. Negotiate with as many teams as they want. Drive up the price as much as they want. So it's going to be difficult. And I don't foresee it being great for the Yankees. Brian Cashman could fool us. He caught us by surprise in 2021. Mm-hmm. We thought the early Joey Gallo trade was going to be at least helpful. It was the worst thing of all time.
It was not.
I don't know if I blame him for that, but then you see the stuff that came out of the front office after where it was like the scouting report said he's not going to fit in New York. It's going to be a disaster, and they kind of overruled that. But in terms of what he gave up, the only real player in that deal was Josh Smith, and yeah, it'd be good to have him now, but I was not holding on to Josh Smith for 3.5 more years to hope that he would pan out one day at the major league level when we had better prospects ahead of him.
They would have had to protect him on the 40-man
Yeah.
after the end of 2021 too. So everyone's saying like, wouldn't the 2024 Yankees love to have Josh Smith? Yeah, but he wouldn't have survived until now if he hadn't been used in that trade. He would have been exposed to the Rule 5 draft at the end of that year, or they would have traded Oswald Peraza, which they probably should have done. But there are a million different dominoes that have to fall to get Josh Smith onto this roster.
Yeah.
He has to survive the edge of the 40-man for 3 straight years and get developed by the Yankees, who don't develop offensive talent. But other than that, yeah, it'd be great to plug and play an all-star at third base right now. Genius.
Yeah. It's unfortunate how little people know, including myself.
It would be awesome if the Yankees had Josh Young. Yeah, I mean, it would be awesome if they had Wyatt Langford. I don't know. What the fuck are we doing?
It's just tough for me. Like, I'm not scared to trade with the Rays. I'm not scared to trade in division for the most part. Again, I trust Brian Cashman to not make a massive mistake. The worst thing he does is just make inconsequential trades that don't matter. Nothing for nothing. Great. Okay. We deleted time off the calendar, and now what are we doing? He's not involved in any lopsided trades that are hurting the Yankees. So I don't know. I really don't. We have to wait until the last minute for this shakes out. So the insight here is tough, but again, I feel strongly about them needing another impact bat or two and bullpen arms. Like, that's it. I don't know who that would be. I'm not sure anybody on the Rays is as impact of a bat as I would like, but we'll see. We will indeed see.
Brandon Lau bad in the playoffs, to be fair. Also, somebody in the Twitter comments today was like, he's basically Joey Gallo 2.0. Joey Gallo's strikeout percentages are in the high 30s, low 40s.
Joey Gallo's like not even a baseball player anymore.
Made no sense. I had to check because I was like, am I the dumbest person alive? Does Brandon Lau strike out 37% of the time? No, it's like the mid-20s. There was like, the Twitter guy was like, all strikeouts, his only good attribute is power. I was like, that doesn't sound like Brandon Lau at all, but let me check. Oh, wait, I was actually correct. I'm not always right, but I was right in that particular.
He had fucking 39 homers 3 years ago.
Yeah, he's good, but he is Joey Gallo, so just be prepared. You might accidentally be trading for a Rays infielder in Joey Gallo's clothes.
Actually, his strikeouts have like gradually decreased.
Yeah, I don't know what we're talking about here, but look, I'm sure they'll increase again when he joins the New York Yankees. But that would be my preferred fit. I like Rosario. I feel like. The question is, did he learn something on the Rays, or is he going to forget it as soon as he leaves the Rays?
Yeah.
What are we dealing with here? I'm not dealing for 2020. When the Yankees beat the Guardians in the DS in 2022, I pretty much was like, the only guy I can get out in this lineup consistently is Ahmed Rosario. Like, it's nice to see him atop the lineup.
Yeah.
Because Kwan's on always. I know Ramirez is going to kill me. I know Naylor's going to be tough, but I know I can get Rosario in the middle. I can get one out. Then I'll have to deal with the 3-4 guys. So am I trading for that? It depends on what assets I'm surrendering. Am I trading for Tanner Scott? Probably not, because everyone's trying to trade for Tanner Scott. People are trying to give me a different Tanner, too. Everyone's like, if you like Tanner Scott, why not Garrett Crochet and Tanner Banks? I'm not seeing it with 32-year-old Tanner Banks is an ERA so high he could be a Yankees first-round pick this year. But 4.33, the Ks aren't monstrous. The whip is high, trending down, bad in his last 7 outings, bad in his last 30. I don't know. Not surrendering the farm for Tanner Banks because I know I'm going to have to pay for controllable relievers. But you got to get me 2 arms. Got to have swing and miss. Remember Ian Hamilton?
Yeah.
Remember Nick Birdie? These are people that theoretically will be back at some point. I don't even know if I'm interested, but they're technically on the roster. Before we sign off, you had a rant about the All-Star proceedings, and I'm going to cede the floor to you because it's a valid rant.
Well, here's what we got to do. First of all, bad vibes for the before the second half start. They need to go away. So that's why I'm choosing now to do this.
Yeah.
I don't want to be complaining about any roster-related things 2 weeks from now. Again,
it's a Trump presidency. It's like, isn't that going to be so good for content? No, it's going to make you miserable. Like, oh, isn't the Yankees losing so good for the Yanks Go Yard podcast? No, it sucks. We log on twice a week and just yell about it. I want to love my players. Yeah. Unfortunately, the Yankees have been my least favorite team in Major League Baseball for 2 months.
4 years?
4 years, 2 months. What's the difference? Yeah.
So anyway, rewind. Corey Seager was at the All-Star festivities. He got voted in after Altuve dropped out, right?
Yeah.
Because
constant silent dropout. Altuve
he doesn't participate in All-Star games anymore, and we've just accepted it. Everybody accepts it. It's fine. Any Yankees player, even like a Mets player who did that, it'd be viewed much more negatively in the media. But anyway, Corey Seager was approached by the media. He was at his home park. It's a nice story. Him and Marcus Semien were there, as well as Kirby Yates. And for some reason, he was asked about Aaron Judge, the size of Aaron Judge, because Aaron Judge is a larger-than-life man. And I didn't draw any conclusions from what he said, but it just made me think back to 2021 about how of a missed opportunity this was. And the missed opportunities go back to 2017, right, when the Yankees prioritized Giancarlo Stanton over Bryce Harper and Manny Machado, which were objectively better acquisitions because of their ability to play defense and their penchant for contact over, swing and miss. Nonetheless, Corey Seager, we all wanted him, right? I think there was a brief moment in time where we wanted Carlos Correa because we had fully broken our brains into believing that he would be the clutch piece that this team was missing. It was a bad time. It's still a bad time. Our brains are not fully developed on some of the takes that we have for sure, because a lot of what this team has done to us over the last, really since 2018 has just been bad. Playoff utility, to throw away good regular season performance, torpedoing the roster at the trade deadline, misses in free agency, whiffs on trades, whatever it is. But Corey Seager on Aaron Judge said, he's unbelievable. You don't actually realize how big he is until you're actually beside him. You could tell he's big on TV, but when you get beside him, it's really impressive. Super nice guy, too. Unbelievable human. Unbelievable human. Corey Seager thinks Aaron Judge is an unbelievable human. That's really nice. We should hear more of that. But then it got me thinking. Corey Seager grew up a Yankees fan, idolized Derek Jeter. We thought, per reports, per rumors, whatever, had an interest in coming to the Bronx. Whatever transpired, the Yankees ended up not being interested in Seager. What they end up doing instead, they traded for Josh Donaldson and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa as a short-term stopgap option to pave the way for Anthony Volpe, which, again, they never do with prospects. They never guarantee prospects anything. They telegraphed Anthony Volpe starting in 2023 a year and a half early after he had one good season in the minor leagues. They hitched their wagon to him. Anthony Volpe's the guy. Even if Anthony Volpe was the guy, there was a way to make this work. Corey Seager signed a 10-year, $325 million contract with the Rangers. Yes, it's a long time, but guess what? He was hitting free agency earlier than most do. He's a year older than Juan Soto. He was a year older than Juan Soto would be next year hitting free agency, which is why it's a unique free agency. It's like, okay, this is where you give out the 12-year contract. You don't think twice about it, because you're not really going to be eating regression years and you're going to get the most out of the prime. So not only did the Yankees pass on that, they passed on getting a lefty bat that hit for contact and power, which they were desperately missing. And they thought Isaiah Kiner-Falefa would be a reputable stopgap shortstop when he's a utility player. So you look at all the factors here. Corey Seager could have been a Yankee if, I guess, they had offered him the money. And you might say, oh, man, what does that mean for the arrival of Juan Soto, though? Do we ever trade for Juan Soto? I don't know. What if we didn't need Juan Soto? Ever think of that? Like, I love Juan Soto, but, like, wouldn't it have been cool to not go into an offseason like we did this past year and being like, if we don't get the best player in baseball, we are going to kill ourselves. We're going to literally riot. Didn't like feeling that way. I'm glad it happened. I'm glad Brian Cashman made the move. But even if you, like, in theory, couldn't get Juan Soto, you wouldn't have necessarily needed him, because you would have had Corey Seager, you would have had Aaron Judge. That's as good of a 1-2 duo. And then guess what? If you wanted to trade for 1 year of Juan Soto and absorb the $30 million salary, you probably could have done it if you just shaved all these other expenditures that you wasted money on off the payroll. And then not even that, the other aspect of this that's crazy is, like, even if Volpe was good enough, Volpe could have played second. You could have got rid of Gleyber Torres earlier, not have to deal with that problem. Corey Seager at short. Volpe gradually moves over to short as Seager, ages out of the position, deals with some injuries. We know Corey Seager has a penchant for injuries, right? Fairly lengthy injury history, but guess what? His production never suffers after he gets back from the injured list. Right back where he picks up, right back where he left off. He has played in, I think, like 353 games with the Rangers over the last 2.5 years, which is a considerable amount. He missed a good portion of last year. He had off-season surgery this year, which affected the start of his season. But he's hitting .279 with an .869 OPS and 141 OPS plus in those 2.5 seasons. That would have made all the difference on the Yankees. And you could have been more flexible with the infield. You could have had Volpe going from second to short, figuring it out. Seager maybe getting some licks at third base, figuring out if he could play there long-term as the time went on. I don't know. It just felt like more of a seamless fit than whatever the Yankees did. The Yankees ended up paying Donaldson and Kiner Falefa $28+ million over the 2 years that they had them. Why was $32 million for Corey Seager too much money? It's the same money. The only thing that I can think in my head is that they were just paving the way for Volpe and didn't want any interruption there, which again doesn't make sense. And then if you want to talk about payroll, it's like, it doesn't matter. They could have fit that into the picture. They fit it into the picture with those two guys who were borderline useless for this team based on how they were. Josh Donaldson was useless, period. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa was useless because they utilized him improperly.
He's probably on the trade market, though, if we want to go grab him back.
Yeah, we can.
They figured him out.
We can certainly do that. But yeah, there were so many ways to get creative and flexible with this, and the Yankees opted not to do it. And it just reminded me of that when he was talking about Aaron Judge. And then secondly, it's like, okay, say we did get Juan Soto. We traded for Juan Soto. Now we have Corey Seager, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, Juan Soto. Pretty good team, right? And then you're wondering, oh man, what if we can't sign Juan Soto to a long-term deal after the season? Guess what? Never guaranteed for anybody. Juan Soto has not revealed his intentions. There is no guarantee he signs with us. There is no guarantee he even signs with a contender. He's a Boris client. It is up in the air. I would bet that the odds are in our favor, but there's no guarantee. And secondly, I don't want to have to go into this offseason being like a repeat of last year, essentially, to a different degree. Oh man, if we don't sign Juan Soto to a 12-year contract, we're fucked. We're fucked for the rest of time. Instead, you could have had Juan Soto. You could have maybe figured something out. If he ended up leaving, had you traded for him, you say, guess what? We still have Corey Seager, Aaron Judge as the core, and we could build around that. Instead, the Yankees somehow created an outfield problem when outfield is the easiest position to come by. Easiest position to come by. There's 3 positions in the outfield. There is the depth at the position across Major League Baseball is considerable. And you managed to not have any outfielders last year outside of Aaron Judge. And then this year you have to make 2 momentous acquisitions, one with a rival, to make sure that you have a respectable outfield. And now you're playing Aaron Judge out of position as a result because you had to go out and trade for Juan Soto. So not complaining about Juan Soto being here. I love him. I want him here for the long term. But the hoops that this organization has jumped through by avoiding the obvious clear fits, to me, trying to be the smartest guys in the room. That's what it comes off as. Unless the Yankees want to come out and say, I'm wrong and other whatever else,
they should.
So be it. Yeah. You are passing on the most obvious free agent fits possible for what this team has been lacking for 5 years. And then you're fitting square pegs into round holes to fix all of those problems again every single year. And now we're in this predicament. Had you just had Corey Seager, $32.5 million on the payroll, it's set, it's done. You have a shortstop. You have insurance if Anthony Volpe's not good, which, by the way, right now he is not. He's a fine player. He has big shoes to fill as a shortstop of the New York Yankees. Got to play good defense, got to be a good offensive player. The glove has improved. The offense has regressed. The criticisms are getting louder. If you had the luxury to shift him over to second base and say, you know what, have fun over there. Corey's going to take over at shortstop. Pressure's off you for now. Focus on yourself. Get it together. That would have been a great luxury to have. Instead, we have a middling infield with Torres and Volpe up the middle. Torres's time here expired 2 years ago. And it's just more of the same. Yankees waiting and waiting and waiting to get rid of talent that is not suitable for this team. Waiting and waiting and waiting to get rid of culture fits that are awful. And now we're at another situation. Every year for all these teams, for all these contenders, it should not be, well, If you don't capitalize at the trade deadline, you're done. Are Phillies fans looking at their team that way? Are Phillies fans saying, you know what, if we don't capitalize at this trade deadline, we are finished? Dodgers fans might, because there's been a lot of injuries over there, so that's a little bit different. If you're talking about from a personnel standpoint, people who are going out on the field every single night, take injuries out, the top teams in this league are not worried about having to make 3 momentous moves at the trade deadline. Yeah, you want to as additives, but if push comes to shove and there's not a lot of sellers and the bidding gets too high and it's uncomfortable, you can live with getting through the rest of the season with the group that you have. The Yankees for 5 years in a row have not had the group that they needed at the trade deadline, and it leaves them susceptible to getting into bidding wars with these teams, having all these roster problems. Corey Seager could have solved so many issues. Bryce Harper could have solved so many issues, opted not to do either of them, paying for it dearly every single season. They could have made their day-to-day work so much easier. Less heavy lifting in the offseason, less panicking as the trade deadline goes on. They didn't do it. Now, every year we're wondering who they're going to get the trade deadline with fewer and fewer sellers because of the expanded playoff field, and it's just a disaster. I would have loved Corey Seager as a Yankee. It's a shame that he's not.
Corey Seager, Anthony Volpe, if you have both of them.
Good problem.
Seager ages out of shortstop, and Volpe can cover defense at short. Fantastic. Shortstop, third base. As it stands now, the Yankees did not acquire a long-term shortstop fit because they gave the position to Anthony Volpe before he was ready. Anthony Volpe has posted the Devils' OPS in both his first full season and the first half of his second season. It's crazy. 666 OPS in both his first year and the first 98 games of this season. If you believe in symbols, which I don't, and obviously this is an ironic statement, and I don't believe that Anthony Volpe is Satan incarnate, but it is just an awful OPS. He's had it twice.
Yeah.
He had an 81 OPS plus last year to hit for power, and that was it. Now he doesn't hit for power, but he also doesn't hit for contact, and he's down to an 87 OPS plus because of some of the work he did early in the season. He plays 440 plate appearances, 404 at-bats. We love to see that. He hasn't hit a home run in months. Second half is going to be – we need
bases anymore.
If we don't have a second half from Anthony Volpe, we're sunk.
Yeah.
Joel Sherman covered this. We covered this. You wrote a column that I would say is right out of Joel Sherman's brain that runs on the site in a matter of hours. But yeah, Anthony Volpe, I mean, how many shortstops would you take over him in Major League Baseball right now? Well below the Corey Seager level of contribution.
Yeah.
I mean, is he in the top half of shortstops you'd want in Major League Baseball right now? For me, no. And until he's in the top third, then this was a poor move.
Yeah. And one more for the comments here, because I see it here. If the Yankees had signed Seager, they'd be in the same boat today. 2 stars with no help around them. They would have had 2 stars in 2023. They would have had 2 stars in 2022. They would have had 2 stars in 2024, and then they would have had the ability to build around those 2. They had 1 star in 2022, 1 star in 2023, and then they had to go out and get the literal best hitter in baseball to be the 2nd star. So that could have been the 3rd acquisition, or they could have just made more cost-effective moves that maybe at that point, if they had Seager under a long-term contract, they would have thought twice about Carlos Rodon. I like the Carlos Rodon signing. I'm not saying it was a bad one, but there was clear hesitance on the Yankees side, especially after you see the Hal Steinbrenner comments about having buyer's remorse and feeling like he got tricked by Scott Boras, and just the nature with how the deal materialized. Like, it wouldn't have been as aggressive as a need if you had the requisite offense behind them. They don't know what the offense would have looked like in 2022 and 2023 with another competent bat in there. You just don't. And they would have had the money because they have all the money.
And player development failure has sunk this as well. Like, if you had those 2 stars clogging the payroll and you don't sign Carlos Rodon because of it, that's a good thing. You don't want that Carlos Rodon contract on the books right now. They would have already had the Stanton as a sunk cost. They would have already had LeMahieu as a sunk cost. You could fill in 2 or 3 competent young players around them.
Saves money.
Then you'll be fine. But they were not able to float 2 or 3 competent young players in the margins there because they don't know what a competent young player looks like or how to make one. There's a world where Corey Seager on the 2022 roster is a World Series winning roster. They got up to a 61 and 23 star without him. But unfortunately, they never galvanized. They collapsed, and then they were stuck with Josh Donaldson in a flaming bag, a paper bag, on their doorstep. Josh Donaldson showed up this past weekend to taunt some Orioles fans, though, so that was nice. Not sure where
and
that
then posted
came
a Trump pic.
And then posted a Trump pic. So that's Josh Donaldson's 2024 season, during which I think he's still being paid. I'm not actually sure. No,
I think he got paid. He got his buyout, and that was it.
Yeah. The Yankees said, please, we will literally pay you not to post this Donald Trump picture. He was like, good luck. So the Yankees blew some of their budget on bribing Josh Donaldson to not post RNC content. But unfortunately, it happened. Well, we'll see what the Yankees have in store for us in the second half. Again, if we don't get a bounce back from a number of the players on the current roster, then this is not a playoff team. Right now, the only OPS plus marks over 100, Soto, Judge, Stanton. Crazy. And so if they don't get some bounce backs internally, they're not going to the playoffs, but you can at least patch some of those holes. I agree. Bat is primary need, bullpen number 2. I would shuffle the rotation if the opportunity presents itself, but at the very least, get yourself some insurance. Hope Clark Schmidt is on the road to recovery, but the bullpen not close, in my opinion, without 2 more arms. Maybe it's Jack Neely internally and a trade candidate, but you got to fix that. Bats. And Anthony Volpe, we need to see a rebound. Gleyber Torres, we need to see a better version of you in the second half, man. Does it still exist? I'm not sure. And Alex Verdugo, if we get league average, that'd be fine. If we can get 13% below league average, not going to work. And that's what we've gotten lately.
Yeah, that's all we need. We need not below 100 OPS pluses. We need guys who are at least getting on base. We need people getting timely hits. That's it.
Timely hits would be fantastic.
No trade deadline acquisition based on the availability out there is going to save this roster if we don't have 2 or 3 bounce backs. It's just how it is.
Yep. And we had it, and then we lost it. Let's get the rotation back in sync. Luis Heel, positive steps. Garrett Cole, positive steps at the end of the first half. You can see it. You don't have to squint that hard, but also you could see the worst stuff happening because it just happened for a month. So we get it. We'll see you right back here on Monday. Rays series, that's a 4-gamer, so it will not be over when we are on Monday. There will, in fact, be a baseball game when we're on the air Monday. We'll see you then, 2 o'clock Eastern. I am Adam Weiner. You can find me on Twitter at Adam Weiner. Thomas Carannante, where can the people find and yell at you?
Do it at Tommy's_takes, official Yanks Go Yard Twitter account at Yanks Go Yard FS, where they're hanging out. Please go over to yanksgoyard.com. We got a ton of content there for you. We appreciate you guys reading. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also an easy thing to do. Yanks Go Yard is the code for DraftKings. If you're a first-time user or know any friends who are trying to get into gambling for free, bonus bets, free money. Try it out. See if you like it. Enjoy the weekend, I guess. We got some breaks from baseball. The All-Star game was kind of cool, a little bit boring. Home Run Derby, kind of cool. A little bit boring. I don't know. But it was good to have that breather. Now we're back. Second half, stuff needs to start happening. If they don't learn from what they just experienced after that 8-18 stretch with 4 days off, then there is no hope here, folks. We'll leave you with that.
Isn't that a good spot to leave you with? Hey, yeah. Might be hopeless. Anyway, check back in with us next week to see just how hopeless the Yankees were. Take care, everybody. We'll see you right back here on Monday.